back onto the SD card. I found a way to use this camera and get a decent amount of storage by deleting most of my programs and getting on the lowest resolution. And then I keep the display brightness down to low, and then I'm able to get it even lower when I turn the camera on. Get a few hours out of it. Well, let's take a pee and rest up for a bit. Look for a dry bench. I'll probably have to take a shit at some point. I've seen a lot of mushrooms. Good walking. This is the white woman who once told me that in her profession and dressage, she has to make sure listens to horses. You have to really listen to them. And in the 10 hours that this woman has talked at my mother or I in one community where we lived, never once listened to anything we had to say or asked us a question or how we're doing. Ever, ever, ever. The only thing you've got going for you is you know that this person is like a nothing human being. But every time they see you, they seem more and more interested in knowing you. But they never know anything about you. They have no inhibitions about just talking about themselves continually. But they learn nothing about you. Right? Why? Because the inciting conditions in behavior, in their personality, right, are never going to be solved by their personality. Ever. It's not there, whatever they're doing, to really do anything constructive to the most important needs of their life. You know, Maslow has this hierarchy of need. Your number one need as a modern person is to deal with the problem of dislocation within your family and the artifacts, excesses, excessive labor, mental disorders, or just conditions which you find disfavorable to yourself or others throughout the world that are artifacts of a dislocation family that is good for the economic God system, but it's not good for you. You are trained to marry the survival of the economic God system in its various incarnations of so-called human goodwill and higher development in a world that doesn't even consider you human, your own survival. Any question of which is seen as more of a threat to your survival than who's forced you to do this. And so the inciting conditions of your membership in that system are never solved by your membership in that system, but are ready to feel threatened to anyone who questions the system or any of the dramatically negative effects of your group, sectional and professional associations in that system. So I find it very interesting what is accepted in the system and what isn't accepted. Remember, things that threaten your membership in such a system are deemed more threatening than the system, which is fundamentally your threat. That is a schizoid reality. You might think I'm a schizoid for thinking that. You might say that sounds schizophrenic. That's the cult psychology or the cult capacity of groups. You don't have to use it to paint everything with a negative brush. There's still people and ferries and planes and vacations and ways to come home from work and crack open a beautiful drink and sit down and be with your family. And the beautiful hours that you log. But don't expect the system to credit your nature at all. It panders to you as much as it needs to get what it wants from you. It's a narcissistic economic system. And strangely enough, if I put it in that way, people understand. Every working person sitting in every living room understands that their boss is going to get as much as they can off of them, the government wants to get as much as they can off of them. And because you're working with this predatory system, you're in danger of becoming predatory yourself. You give enough to a drug, you start to demand the same from your children. And their objections to it are already been anticipated by the system as the various diseases which children are given, because their own nature is objecting to the barbaric elimination of their nature from all of your godlike consideration of their happiness in life. It's schizophrenic. If I hadn't seen it myself, if I hadn't had years to think about it, if I hadn't had, you think at this point, like, how many more negative experiences do you need before you start figuring out what's going on? I found this extra joint somewhere, so I was like, I've got 2 fresh ones in my pocket, but I was like, okay, sure. So that's my negative dark of the world. And Oh, you might say, well, that's great, dude, but like, what are you gonna do with that in life? I don't know. So you don't have to write a comment. I already know. Begs the question. So what are you gonna do now, you fucking loser? Which is like nothing. I'm gonna sit here, smoke a joint. That when I get home, all is well. Just like you go to your work and hope that when you come home, all is well and your children are okay and they've gone to the school system and they're not getting some strange idea of their gender identity, which isn't really. I mean, that's great, but I mean, it's like sometimes you make choices. Sometimes it's okay just to be a boy. Let them be a boy or a girl as long as they want to be, right? I get that people need to be able to come down on gender in the way that feels right to them, but let's not make it about sex. You know, like, I don't think children should be thinking about having sex too much. And that's why I don't argue for going to school, because you're in a sex oriented environment, right? There's nothing so useful to the system, but what you can't avoid excreting. A young person in high school, testosterone, fear, sweat, your glands are fucking producing all kinds of shit, right? And you're moving in an invisible fog. And some children are like, "Yay, this is meant for me," and other children are like, "Fuck, I can't." Get acne like me. They don't want to join any groups. They don't want to be a part of it. They obsessed with academics. They make up reasons to stay home sick. I timed how long it took me to go to school, so I never had to interact with people. I go home for lunch. I never used the cafeteria. I never used the bathroom. I showed an exceptional amount of anxiety and physical anxiety. Even ran home once from elementary school in grade 2, and yet they took me right on back. I peed my pants the first time I was in daycare. My mom thankfully never took me back. The young white females in charge of the daycare didn't do anything about it. I remember them ushering me into a room, showing me when my mom was there, this room filled with what looked like a sea, an excessive and obscene array of toys. Bad plastic toys, and this, that, and the other. And I immediately just turned and went into an empty room and sat down in the dark. I was like, I did not want to be here. This is obscene to me. It was a taxpayer factory. I correctly deduced, as you do as a child, that the females running this daycare were predators. You need to expand your idea of the word predator. No white female thinks she's a predator, but they often are. If a white female comes up to you and you're a white male and all they ever do is talk, they're a predator. Oh, hi, I want to talk about myself. I want to talk about myself. This one lady, I was with my mom in a coffee shop, but you don't go back to it. Oh, I'm eating this. I don't eat these vegetables anymore. I don't eat these vegetables. We're just eating this. We're just eating that. See, they're just eating this. We're eating this, and I've got a big stack of vegetables. So I'm going to do that, and go home and cook it. We're doing this. Okay, I got to go now. We've taken their time. Oh, I can't stay anymore. I got to go. I'm busy. And we're just sitting there like, what just happened there? Not thank you for your time or how are you doing? Nothing. If I lived my whole life and never got approached by any of these females again, and I made the mistake, when you come to these small towns, no decent white man goes to these coffee shops because they're filled with desperate white women. Okay? If it was just a nice old couple sitting there, but you even get a single old woman, and oh, just I don't go to the coffee shops. Or these guys that just sit there every day, all day long. I used to be one of them, but I would do stuff. I'd write poetry. I'd come home having accomplished something. Because I believed that this environment was safe, sacrosanct, pleasant. This was an environment. And then I started getting sexually assaulted by the staff, by young females, by older women, by younger women, people lowering their inhibitions around me. But I noticed that when a young woman lowers her inhibitions around me, people are inclined to think that I'm doing something wrong. Like it's my fault. Isn't that weird? It's like never in my life have I interacted with females in any context that I feel comfortable Like I'm always unsafe. There's always a volatile electrical imbalance, and then eventually a discharge of violence. Women are never balanced in social situations. They're always ready to be violent. Women are always unbalanced. They're always at disequilibrium. They can't interact with natural male intelligence. There's always a hunger, there's an aversion, there's a violence, there's a need for love, there's an obsession, there's a need to stalk. There's, it's one thing to get used to someone and find out if they're safe or not. It's another to cover up all your anxieties by becoming aggressive. Like, see, I've never had a female since I was 2 years old give me the signal that I was safe around them, ever. A healthy person that you're friends with should be able to give you the signal they've got your back. They've got your back. They've got your back. They've got your back. And you deserve it, right? You prove that to them because you're a decent person. So I've got food. There's a reason for this, is there? It seems to me they should be. I'm not sure what this next one is. Because I wonder if I can do it. Oh, violent and scary. Yeah. I don't know if I want you to hear that because you're you. I met so many people on these islands that literally disgust me. They're disgusting. They're disgusting human beings. They have no longer any natural respect for the opposite sex. They have no respect for a man whatsoever. I'm 50 years old. I have never had a single human being show, despite an enormous interest in being around me, right? In a single thing about what I love, where I'm from, or anything about my normal, natural life, having been the child of a mother and a father, Alan and Lori, ever in my entire life. Nobody wants to know about that because they're all disrupted on that level, right? Someone who has an okay childhood would be like, hey, what were your mom and dad like? Where did you grow up? Where did you live? Oh. Instead, I'll tell people things about my family, and then one day they'll be like, oh, I've heard enough of that. I've heard enough of you. They just makes them angry because they don't. I know all about that. I know all about you. Don't worry, I know all about that. It's scary. There are things that people say to me now that I know, oh, that's not a good sign. That's a sign. Some more obvious than others. When someone starts using my name a lot when they're talking to me, it's not a good sign. Because I can tell by someone uses my name whether or not I'm safe around them or not. Like when this white French family came through. Demons? Just people. I'm not a big fan of French people, but French people are weird. A lot of the people who think they care about people that are white have no longer any natural interest in the well-being of other people. Right? Now it's just all about power and politics. To help someone for them has to be associated with affirming their sense of identity. So there's this one man, this white man, and he always asked me, hey, what are you up to? And I start to tell him, and then he usually cuts me off or ignores me. And then he'll always tell me, and I'm like, what have you been up to? Oh, I've been laying sandbags. Oh, I went for a 10-mile hike. Or, oh, I went for this trail, and I got the Queen's honor for going down this trail and cutting up these logs. It's always about marquee accomplishments, right? Marquee performance. Right? And yet, if I tell this white couple anything about my life that's real, they ignore me or ask me if that's a positive thing or not. They have no natural interest in my daily affairs whatsoever, none. But they always seem to like to see me. There's no connection whatsoever. They have no natural interest in me as a person. But at least they have an excuse to tell somebody in public what they've been up to. And they always have some marquee thing that they've done. They'll see that when they're young too. They'll be like, oh, on the weekend I did this. And I did this amazing thing. Oh, and I'm doing this amazing thing. And next week I'm doing this amazing thing. You should see all the amazing I'm doing. I'm the amazing doer. I'm doing so many amazing things, I can't even tell you. It's just so amazing the things I'm doing. Did you know that? As a white person, I'm just doing so amazing things. Oh, and I did this, and I did that, and I'm doing this, and I'm this, and I'm this, and I'm big and strong. Hey, take care. And they never find anything out about you. They don't know anything. See, there are a lot of interesting reasons people behave that way. I'm going to go out to the park and then go into Englishman and walk around. What the hell? I've got the day ahead of me. Stretch my legs. Piece the last little off. Good, fine. Okay, let's go. I'm going to push myself a bit today instead of going back to the estuary. Looks like they've laid gravel, fine gravel along here. Yeah, and lots of stories. Not good stories, but stories nonetheless. People are weird. Really weird. You see them in their families, and you see their children are there, and the one girl is staring over in my direction because they're missing something in their lives, or they'll project onto me that something's missing in my life. And you ever notice yourself projecting? White people project all the time. This lady Faye, one of my other mom's friends in the building, been talking shit about me. I suspect did some witchcraft. The one lady, within 2 days, her son is moving her out of the building into a home and then back to the mainland. Now it fits in with what they were planning to do. So forth, but it happened within basically 24 hours of laying a curse, which is just for the best. It's like, so now this lady Faye was coming down. She doesn't make appropriate, despite knowing who I am. She's never introduced herself to me. She's a bit of an antisocial creature. She's not a well human being. Yeah. So one little dog will be taken from her and she'll lose her shit-eating friend. Doesn't make proper eye contact when I see her in the building. Right? And I don't make contact with her. She has no positive interest in me as a person. Well, I can afford to take a detour. Every side. It's weird, I've never been accepted into any human group. I was actually expelled from my own family of birth quite violently by my father and brothers and sister. But they still don't even know what they did. They don't even accept it. But they're quite capable of doing it, right? Because essentially, they didn't even have each other. At some point, all they had was the ability to mutilate another human being. That's all they really had, And I'm the one who had to endure it patiently. And you endure things and you take steps, right? The thing, buddy. You get up every day of your life, shock, you deal with trauma. You're an honest, patient little spider moving through the world, writing, connecting ideas, connecting experiences. A very, very eminently useful human being to any decent community. And all you want is to be left in peace. And you have to make that happen yourself, because no one's going to do that for you. You've got people on your bus from the west. You're standing at your bus from the west. And now you're coming into people's homes who don't even use your fucking services from the west end. Why? Okay? Stop fucking with my family. You understand me? Stop fucking with my family. My name's not Vincini. Leave us the fuck alone. Lose my mother's fucking number. Leave us alone. You understand me? How many times have I seen that? Lake. Okay. Look at that. There are people over there. They want to spread their cancer. People, violent people, men and women, they want to spread their cancer. They want to spread their violence. They want to spread it without compunction, without redress, without inhibition. humans lose their inhibitions and just start spewing. Right? I've had women I was simply buying flaxseed and oatmeal get so fucking attached to me that they shit and think that I was a rapist or something. Just completely go psychotic. People go crazy. Not in a nice way. The Beatles can get on stage and make a million young girls calm themselves. But if I make depends on what economic status they think they're at. A psychotic group upside down. But don't expect anyone to agree with you. Oh look, a school bus. They used to haul us to places to go for field trips. Right? They let you loose. Oh no. Let's see who leaves the bus. Probably a better use for it.